Welcome to the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. This is a show about pushing through obstacles and hard times in order to live a happy and fulfilled life. I'm your host, Ted Phaeton, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's grow. Welcome back to the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. We're sitting down here today with Joseph Caldwell, CEO of Consolidated Assurance, also chairman of the board for First Responders Benefits Association. Joseph, thanks for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And right away, I want to introduce you to our listeners. So why not let them know who you are, what it is you do, and really where you come from?
So, it's okay to move this thing back a little bit?
Yeah.
So I'm deaf in one ear.
It's okay.
So it makes it sound weird as it comes through the headphones to me. So I'm deaf in one ear.
There you go.
You can put that out there. So if anybody's on my right side, I never hear what they're saying.
I'll stick to your left.
My wife loves to be on that side. But CEO of Consolidated Assurance, and you know, it's funny. I didn't go to school for business. Mm-hmm. I wasn't granted that title. You know, a lot of the guys that I interact with now that are business owners or they're CEOs of companies, they see the product now of where we are. And one of them the other day were like, man, you got this going on. That's great. You're CEO of this and all that. And I'm like, man, I gave myself that title.
Yeah, you worked for it. It didn't just pop up, right?
Yeah, we worked for it, but when we need a CEO, I was like, well, I guess I'll do that.
Yeah.
you know? So it wasn't like I had a master's degree in business and this long track record of working in a financial firm and worked my way up to that. It was more the homegrown way.
Yeah.
And
but what's that pressure like? Because I mean, I know you could look at the CEO position like, well, I guess I could do that, but you know, there's a lot of people counting on you, looking at you, and you know, there's heavy is the crown, if you would, right?
Right. It's lonely. It's lonely sometimes to have that pressure. But one of the things that I always cling to, and I was just talking to somebody about it this morning, one of my favorite sayings is by Edward Everett Hale. Mm-hmm. And anytime I feel overwhelmed or anxious or I'm worrying about, oh my gosh, I got to handle this, I'll read that out loud. Mm-hmm. And Edward Everett Hale said, I am only one. But I am one. I can't do everything. Yeah. But I can do something. And what I can do, I will do it.
Wow.
And so you do what you can do. Yeah. And stay in a mental state of always looking forward and progressing. Mm-hmm. And never getting caught in the fears of the what ifs that might happen in the future, or I see a lot of people get stuck in the regrets of yesterday. Mm-hmm. And see, that'll steal today and it'll steal tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So every time. I love that. So do what you can do. And there's probably a lot of people listening to the podcast that whatever plans they have, I call the saying, like, you don't have to eat the elephant.
Right.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
And that's a great way to handle the overwhelm. But what would you say to somebody who's lost, who doesn't know which bite to take first?
Confusion on where you're going. Anytime confusion walks into the room, mm-hmm. then activity walks out. They can't be in the same room. Yeah. And so confusion walks in, productivity walks out. And so getting clear of exactly what they want to do, lay the plans out. Look at here, the plan ain't gonna work anyway.
Yep.
But you got to do what you can do.
Yeah.
And most people grossly overestimate what they can accomplish in a month mm-hmm. or a year, and they vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in 2, 5, and 10 years.
Yeah.
And so it's figuring out which way you want to go, and then go. Mm-hmm. Just start moving.
How do you avoid the, because I'm a victim of this, where I can understand I might overestimate what I can accomplish in a year.
Sure.
But I always fall victim to setting ambitious goals and then getting down on myself when I fall short of them.
Sure.
How can you kind of prevent that along the way? Because you want to push yourself and you want to kind of I mean, I also believe the whole saying is, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
Right. Sure.
But when you kind of mix that with ambitious goals,
Right.
it kind of can get a little daunting when you don't,
Sure.
when you consistently don't meet them.
Absolutely. And what I like to tell people about goals, I'm a big proponent of the way Sean Whalen does his goal setting, a 90-day block.
Yeah.
And picking 3 things you can do every single day in each area and revisiting it every 30 days to see where you are on track.
Yeah.
And if it's a no and you're not doing it, then change it. And see, one thing about goals is that people feel like, you sit and talk to your wife, or I sit and talk to my wife, and I set a financial goal for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, halfway through the year, I go, unless I hit the lotto, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And that'll demoralize you, right? You go, I'm a failure. And see, what you have to realize is that all successes are built off of failures.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go, okay, why did I miss this? Why am I missing it? And you just have to get really good at analyzing yourself and your activity, your daily, weekly, monthly activity. And you'll learn whatever business you're in, whether it's sales or whether, which I believe everybody's a salesperson.
Agreed.
You ever try to get a 6-year-old to eat broccoli? You're a sales lady or man at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're selling you on not eating it.
That's an interesting concept. Yeah.
So who's going to win?
Yeah.
But one thing about goals is that I've come to the point where I've realized my goals aren't written in stone,
Mm-hmm.
and if they were, stone can be broken.
Mm.
And that comes along with maybe I didn't set it big enough and I'm crushing it,
Yeah.
and the only thing that's feeding is my ego.
So you you set the table for you to win.
Yeah.
And then when you start going on your winning streak.
Oh, yeah, this is where you start. Oh, look at me, man.
Yeah.
I'm crushing it this year.
Yeah.
Look at me.
Another one.
Another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not good either. It's the same thing, because deep inside that demoralizes you too.
Mm-hmm.
You're cheating yourself.
I love what you said about learning how to reflect and analyze yourself. I'm actually currently going through this process myself and seeing why I'm not reaching certain goals. What goals am I reaching? What are my daily habits doing to play into my success or failure of those goals? And what happens if you don't like some of the things you find? If you don't like some of the habits, if you don't like some of the actions you take on a daily basis, where does your mindset go there? How do you adjust and handle that?
So the thing I realized about habits is that I was a slave to my habits when I was what the world would call unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And what the world would call successful. I'm slave to my habits in both arenas, no matter what. And if I'm going to be a slave to habits, which everyone is a slave to their habits, right? God's no respecter of persons, but he damn sure respects principle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a slave to my habit no matter what. So I went, I got to form good habits. Because if I'm going to be a slave to them, I might as well be a slave to good ones. Mm-hmm. And so part of that self-awareness or self-reflection, or, you have all these buzzwords these days that people call them, what's popular now.
Yeah.
But part of that introspection should push you to analyze those habits and get real with yourself and go, well, I'm out of shape. Well, what am I eating? Mm-hmm. Right? Like analyze the biggest thing first, right? Like what am I shoving in my mouth?
Yeah.
And I was at that point. I actually 10 or 12 years ago, I went to the doctors for a routine checkup, and on the way, I drank a bunch of liquor the night before. That's real healthy.
Yeah.
And on the way there, I stopped and got a Frappuccino from McDonald's. They hadn't told me to fast or anything, and so they did my blood work. And the doctor comes in and he goes, well, we'll have your A1C for you here in a little while, but your glucose reading is like 217. You're a diabetic. And I went, no, I'm not. And he goes, and according to the weight chart, you're 25, no, it was 40 something pounds overweight.
Wow.
I was right at 220.
Yeah.
And I looked at the doctor, and when you're confronted with that, you can do a couple things. You can get offended, right, and point outside yourself. So that's the first thing I did.
Yeah.
And I looked at him. I was like, "What about you, fat boy?" That's what I said to the doctor. He goes, "You're a diabetic. You might as well get extra life insurance now. You're going to die 15 years early.
Wow.
So go ahead and get the life insurance so that you take care of your spouse and kids." And I was like, "Yeah, well, your stupid little chart doesn't take this into consideration." And I'm flexing and stuff, knowing I just ate a Frappuccino. My diet was terrible.
Yeah.
And so it's self-awareness is the number one key. It's the number one predecessor to success in any area of your life.
Yeah.
So if you become aware and really look at it in health-wise and go, well, I'm not moving enough.
Yeah.
I'm shoving stuff in my mouth that I shouldn't put in my mouth. I know better, or maybe I don't know better and I need to learn. Maybe I'm ignorant.
Yeah.
Well, ignorance is never a plea in the court of law. It never wins.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wasn't supposed to steal it. Doesn't cut it.
Yeah. You
right?
still stole it. Yep.
You still shoved it in your mouth. You still ate it. You're still eating donuts. You're still doing it. So self-awareness in all of those areas. You have a bad relationship, bro, first place you need to look is in the mirror, right?
Definitely.
It's funny when not funny, haha, but funny, ironic when you meet people and talk to them, and they're like, yeah, everybody I meet, they end up doing me wrong. You met those people?
There's a common denominator with that.
Right.
You got to let them know. It's like, hold on. Everybody you meet?
Everybody. So it's for people to become self-aware and to do that introspection, they have to be okay being offended.
Yeah.
Offended's not bad. Anytime I get offended now, I'm like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Like I got something that I haven't learned here. And the other party could be grossly wrong, but guess what? I don't control them.
Yeah.
I don't
control
them.
myself.
I control this person.
And that's huge, because when it comes to being offended, I've learned to slow down, because emotion comes in like a rush, like a wave. And a lot of times people hop on that wave and they ride it all the way to shore.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not your beach. No. So when I feel that rush of emotion, I kind of go, okay, wait. Let's assess what was said, what impact it had on me, why it offended me.
Yeah.
Because half the time, the reason it offended you, and my friend Charles, he said this to me, he's like, the reason it offended you is because there was some truth in it.
Or it struck a chord in what you believe about yourself deep down.
Yep.
And it may not be true, but it's what you believe.
That's better articulated.
And that, we could get into it. I'm white, you're black.
Yeah.
We're in the South. We both walk into different places. We get viewed different ways just because of the color of our skin.
Yeah.
And I have seen things with my African American friends. I have seen things they've had to deal with that I haven't had to deal with. I haven't had to deal with it. But I've seen the ones that handle it with grace because they know the truth.
Yeah.
And trying to control someone outside of you or trying to control a situation outside of you is the very definition of worry and anxiety. It causes all worry and anxiety trying to control that. When you can really look inward and go, wow, that offended me because maybe I believe I'm less.
Yeah.
Or maybe I believe something different. And we can grow through those things, right? I love getting offended now.
Yeah. Which, with your big offense of, hey, you're diabetic, you're going to die early. I mean, that's huge, which some people would say that doctor should be fired. I'd say that doctor was blunt, honest, and told you like it is.
Hey, I appreciate him.
Yeah, because anybody that's watching the YouTube video, you're in shape.
Right. I'm not a diabetic.
Yeah.
I don't take any diabetes medication.
Yeah.
Nothing. My levels are flawless.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I'm going to leave here because you put that on my medical record and that you will reverse that. In 6 months, I will be back.
Yeah.
And I lost 45 pounds and started learning about diet and learning about what I was putting in my mouth and some of the things I was ignorant to, and some of them I was, I chose to be ignorant to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that next 6 months, losing that weight, getting active, feeling better, I went back. That sucker retired. So I never got to rub it in his face.
I couldn't even get like the address to send a letter or something.
Yeah. But the same technician was there that did my blood, and she came back in and she goes, if I hadn't taken your blood the first time, I wouldn't believe this is the same person.
Nice. I think the big thing there is not just the self-awareness, but the responsibility also. I can relate in terms of when I first came out of college, I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis.
Okay.
And the first flare-up was the diagnosis. The bad one was a couple years later. But I had a rough go at things. I was in my head, depressed, like mild depression. And I was eating 20-piece chicken nuggets from McDonald's, large French fry, and a sweet tea like 2-3 times a week. It wasn't good.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Long term.
So when I'm on the hospital bed and the doctor says, well, do you have a stressful environment? I'm like, yeah, I hate my job. He goes, okay, what's your diet like? I'm like, well, it's not good. And he kind of looked at me like, there's your answer. That's why you're here.
Right.
And the way he presented it to me, there was absolutely no one for me to blame, because I was in that whole mindset of blame.
Sure.
But when he put it there to me, I was like, well, okay, it's on me. And I remember this was December. I had a snowboarding trip in January, or the end of January. And I remember I got out of the hospital December 19th. I lost 30 pounds in a month.
Wow.
And I was skin and bones.
Yep.
And I regained strength. And at the end of January, it was January 26th, I was on top of a mountain snowboarding again.
I love it.
And that was the start of like, you know what? Take the responsibility.
Yep.
Start going for it. And that required me to put myself in uncomfortable positions here and there.
100%. And the thing about responsibility is it's almost laughable to me now, because there's so much information that hits us, and we're all able to blame something outside of us for something that's happening with us. But the lack of personal responsibility is, in my opinion, the greatest cancer this world has ever seen. And I remember in 2013, when I started that year, I went, you know what? I remember looking in the mirror and going, you know what? It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Every bit of it. Some of the things you've won at, very few. I got fired from every job I ever had.
Wow.
By the way.
Saying this as a CEO.
Yeah. But I remember looking in the mirror and going, it's all your fault. And what that did, because if you blame someone outside of you or a situation outside of you for what's going on in your life, that puts handcuffs on you that only someone outside of you has the keys to.
Yeah.
But when you go, I got this, it's my fault, that gives you the keys, and you can get yourself out of it. If you got yourself in it, you can get yourself out of it.
Yeah. And
a lot of times I preface saying that with, you have people that have gone through some horrific events in their life. Okay, you have children that were taken advantage of, or hurt, or molested, or women that have been through horrific things. Is it their fault they went through it? No, that is not what I'm saying. Because I can tell you this, you're either in a storm in your life, coming out of a storm, or headed to a storm.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not saying that it happened to them and it's their fault. What I'm saying is that them staying trapped in the past and not growing through it and coming out of that storm is their fault.
Yeah.
And if they come out of that storm, what a gift. Because them coming out of it, there's someone else that's in it or going into it. And man, what a better gift on this earth than to reach down and go, hey, I went through this.
Pull them out.
You see what I'm saying?
The perfect analogy there, which I read in a book once, they mentioned about the difference between fault and responsibility, is if someone knocks on your door and you open it and there's a baby on your doorstep. It's not your fault that the baby's there.
Right.
But what happens from then on out is now your responsibility.
That's right.
Because the baby's there, you have to choose what happens next.
That's right.
And most people kind of go, the aha moment with that was like, okay, now you decide.
Right.
You know, that happened. There's no changing it, but your decisions and your actions from here on out can shape what happens in the future.
That's exactly right.
I'm interested to know what your journey was like, going from being diagnosed diabetic, looking in the mirror saying it's all your fault, taking ownership over that, to where you are now in terms of being a CEO of a successful company, and also doing a lot of good in the world with FRBA, and coming into where you are. I imagine A, it didn't happen overnight.
No.
B, I imagine there are some ups and downs along the way. So help us bridge that gap in terms of helping somebody start from A to get to B, C, and eventually Z.
So no matter where you are in life when you're listening to this, if there's somewhere you want to go, the path between where you are and where you want to go, it's going to take you longer than you wanted it to take.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to keep you there longer than you wanted to stay, and it's going to require more of you than you could possibly imagine. The path to self-discovery and change, it's funny. I believe that everyone can change, but I also have this demon in me that says nobody does.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was in finance for a while in banking, and what do you make your decisions off of there? The past.
Yeah.
All
Definitely.
of it's the past.
Mm-hmm.
All of it's their past and current situation. That's how you don't ever, I promise I'll pay you. I don't even hear that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so because the money world has figured out that people don't change. But then there's the me that did, right? That was, I did I've had sales jobs where I was so upset I got fired. Well, if you take a nap in a parking lot every day and don't work, that's you're going to get fired. You're not going to sell. You can't blame anybody for that, right? Like I could look at my habits, the habits I was slave to, and that was it. And so when we started Consolidated Assurance, myself, Jeff, and Nathan, it was really out of necessity, and I had to do something. I was in a position where I had to do something, had 4 kids to take care of, a wife, and I felt the weight of that responsibility. And I wasn't cutting the mustard.
Yeah.
I wasn't cutting the mustard. And so it's been a long 10-year journey from that fat kid that was diagnosed with diabetes. That donut eater. Oh, yeah. I haven't had donuts in so long. I stopped the other day on a cheat meal, and I ate 6.
I was going to say, when was the last time you had a donut? Was that?
It was like a month ago or something, and my son and I went together and went to Krispy Kreme and just crushed some chocolate milk and donuts.
Nice.
And I was just laughing about it because it's such a rare thing. Like I almost was like, didn't enjoy doing it, but I really did.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was interesting. But on the journey, you have to decide that no matter what happens, it's part of your journey.
Yeah.
And that keeps you from blaming when catastrophe or good things happen. You can never rest on your laurels and pat yourself on the back for your successes. I encourage people to celebrate them when you hit milestones, but forget them when the celebration's over.
Yeah.
The only reason that you make it to a mountaintop and hit something is so you can see the next mountaintop.
The next peak. Yeah.
That's right. That's the only reason. And as you go, and you'll go down in another valley, and as deep as the valleys are, that's the tallest mountains. And the building blocks in the journey in between, although it can be miserable, the building blocks and the toe holds and the footholds to get up to that next peak, those are the failures. One thing that I've been teaching my kids is failure is the building blocks of success. So if you're not failing, you haven't tried anything.
Yeah.
You're literally doing nothing if you're not failing at something.
Well, that's encouraging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really encouraging. And those failures are the stepping stones to get to that peak, but you got to learn from them.
Yeah.
Or you're doomed. You quit being on the mountain and you start being in a forest and going around the same tree, right? If you refuse to learn from it, because life will just deliver it to you in a different way again, and again, and again, and again.
You have to start picking up on the signs a little bit and say, hey, this looks familiar. Last time I did this, let's go this way this time.
Yep.
You said something before about being in a position where you had 4 kids, you had to support a family, and it wasn't cutting it, and you felt that pressure. Do you think that pressure is necessary for someone to kind of break past that barrier? Do they have to put themselves almost, I call it the burn your boats, if you would. Yeah,
right.
almost in a no retreat situation where the only way is forward.
A lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessary. I don't put myself in that position very often now. So I believe that someone can start this path of self-discovery, plan out where they want to go, start taking the steps they want to get there. And one thing I've learned about life is that if you only seek pleasure, life delivers discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And if you seek discomfort, life will deliver pleasure. Well, it's uncomfortable changing habits. It's uncomfortable. I had a life goal session where we were planning things out with an agent this morning, and he comes from a Marine background, very, very rigid, stoic. And one of the things he told me was he wanted to get uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, when's the last time you complimented one person each day? And he was like, complimented a person? I was like, yeah, just a random stranger, just complimented somebody each day. We started this 2 months ago. It's his favorite part of the day now, but it made him vastly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's something as simple as that. Figure out what makes you uncomfortable, do that.
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
And then when that becomes comfortable, find something else.
Find something else.
What makes you uncomfortable now?
Because
I know we talked about
some
briefly,
weird stuff.
We said like cold showers, and I was like,
yeah.
I've done that, and after a while, the cold showers don't become cold anymore.
Right.
And I'll still do cold showers, and I mean, I've learned with the mental resilience now. It's just like, okay, I'm here.
Right.
I have to be here, and it's just a cold shower.
So I bought a cold plunge pool, which I keep it at about 40 to 44 degrees. That's vastly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's shockingly uncomfortable.
Ooh.
And I keep pushing the time on it. I that triggers a fight or flight in your mind, that type of cold, and so it triggers panic. So our brains are hardwired to keep us safe. Okay. Yeah. Procreation and safety. That's what we're hardwired to do. Mm-hmm. And so if you know that, then you put yourself in a controlled, unsafe environment, right, where you can control that, and make yourself uncomfortable. I found it in cold water because I watched a podcast with Joe Rogan and Wim Hof, and I was like, that would suck. Yeah. So I was like, I'll try that. Yeah. And so January, I go to Poland, and I'm climbing Mount Śnieżka in midwinter in my shorts, shoes and shorts only, with Wim Hof. So I'll train with him for 4 days and then climb on the 5th day. Yeah. So I put myself in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah. So. And I would say that's almost your version of the burn your boats. It's kind of, your body has to be in a position of fight or flight to train that response. Right. So when you put yourself in a control environment, whether it be making a decision in business or tackling an endless to-do list, your fight or flight isn't going to be, hey, let me get out of the water, or let me run away from this to-do list and let confusion sink in. Right. You can get to work and start knocking the stuff off one at a time.
That's right.
We're almost coming to the end of the podcast here. You've already dropped a plethora of knowledge, but one of my last questions would be, what's the biggest storm you've gotten through, or one of the biggest challenges that you've gotten through in life that gives you confidence to take on whatever life can throw at you next?
Oh, my goodness. There has been so many personal trials and tribulations. If we were talking about business, I failed in business several times prior to making it. And that in and of itself, I had things happen to me as a child that we won't get into, but that created things in me, that I had to weather those storms and actually go back and feel what happened, forgive myself, forgive the ones that did it to me, and even, and I'm not trying to get spiritual, but one of the things I had to do was forgive God.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like, well, why would you forgive God? Well, my perception of him was he was supposed to protect me. Yeah. And I wasn't protected. And so that was a big storm. I didn't forgive him for him. I forgave him for me, right?
Exactly.
Because forgiveness is never for the other person,
Yeah.
right? And so that's a big one of me taking responsibility for where I was trapped here and here, and seeing who I had to forgive to release the talents and gifts that were in me.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And I see a lot of people struggle with that and don't talk to anybody. They have these secrets buried that only they know about when they lay their head on their pillow at night. And those are the things that they need to deal with and need to sit in and go through.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think everybody needs at least one person that they can share that with.
Sure.
They can unpack it with. And even the fact of the matter is, with the internet, there's communities out there that have gone through what you've gone through.
100%.
And kind of what you mentioned, going through the storm, and someone that gets out, they can reach their hand back and pull them out, because only people who've been through your storm know how hard that rain's coming down.
That's right.
And they want to help you get out of that as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's exactly right, man. And one of the things with that I wanted to touch on with responsibility, is it always has to start with you as a person first. But one thing I've noticed is that when it starts there and you take responsibility and you start seeing the changes, or your environment will change around you as you change inside you. Okay? So as that happens, you start to see it happen, and you start having the ability to shoulder some of the load for the guy across the table who can't carry his own right now. Right? And so what that does is you take responsibility for others and other things going on, and that becomes your family, then your community, and then it can stretch. If you don't stop there, you keep growing, keep changing inside you, then the environment around you will keep changing, and your shoulders broaden, and you can carry more of the load for others. And that's where most of the things that we do as a company, and sponsoring the First Responder Benefit Association, or any of the other, I mean, we do over 1 million meals a year for people that don't have a meal. And so, and I don't ever tell anybody that to go, hey, that's a great guy. No, I promise you, in the beginning, I didn't care about those people.
Yeah.
Because if you can't shoulder your own stuff, well, if my neighbor's house is burning, and mine's on fire, do you think I care about their house?
No, you're trying to put your own house out.
Trying to put your own house out. And so as you take that personal responsibility, it becomes a family, a community, and then globally, you just start to see things differently, and you're going, I can change that. I can alleviate that. And so it becomes very different. You see things different and people differently.
I think that's one of the realest things we've had on this podcast, because a lot of people, they're good-hearted people, and they have the ability to do so much. However, they haven't put their own house out yet.
Right.
And because of that, they're throwing half a bucket to their house, half a bucket to the other house, and both houses are still on fire.
And they always feel drained.
Exactly.
They always feel taken advantage of. They always feel like it's not enough. And if that's the feeling of people, take care of your house first. Starting with yourself, and responsibility is the key that unlocks that door. But it's amazing to see. You know, I don't talk about money very much, because my view on it is just so different these days, and a lot of people don't see it this way. But we all have our roles, our jobs, and to make this amount of money. But money is really, and it's not popular to talk about, especially in the Bible Belt of the South. Because you get some of the thought process of it's the root of all evil and that kind of thing. But it's really just an inanimate object, and it takes on the spirit of the possessor. And so when somebody is facing money problems, if they just look internal, take responsibility, and work on their own problem, when their issue is taken care of, now they get to make a decision based off of what's in their heart and not what's in their pocket, because their pocket's full. Right? So they're just little soldiers. Money's just a little soldier to send to do what you need it to do.
Exactly.
Right? So, and I think that as you take that personal responsibility and it spreads, that's what a blessing in life looks like. But it looks like a river. It's not a pond. It's not dammed up. It's to flow through you. And that's one of my personal definitions of success. Is how many people I can impact, right, through a life well lived.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Joseph, how can people reach out, connect with you, connect with FRBA, and help and find out more of what you're doing?
So First Responder Benefit Association is frba.org, and we're on all the social media platforms by the same name. And then myself, the CEO of Change, is my tagline on social media.
Okay.
Just because I believe it's my life's mission to help people understand that they can change and do whatever it is they wanted. They can't do everything, but when they get a major definite purpose, they can do it.
Absolutely.
And so, you can find us through there, Joseph at consolidatedassurance.com, if they want to reach out to me.
Yeah.
90 emails behind, like I told you, but I get to it.
Yeah.
I'll
get there. Maybe in a few months, but I'll get there.
But man, I appreciate you having me on your podcast. I really enjoy talking to you.
It's my pleasure. I had a wonderful time. If you're open to it, I'd love to do a couple more, multiple ones, different topics. I know today we kind of focused on responsibility, self-awareness, and pushing through hard times, or really adding difficulty to your life so you can withstand more. And I could just tell there's a lot more topics we could probably unpack and get real about. But just some of the things you broke down for people in terms of saying the 90-day blocks, one thing that you kind of adopted or you really like when people want to maybe change their habits, because as you mentioned, you were a slave to your habits. I think we all are, as you mentioned too. That's a great tidbit. And also asking yourself, why did I miss this? Or when you get failure, don't get down on yourself. Have some self-assessment and really dig deep and find out how you can adjust yourself and improve. And also adding some difficulty to your life little by little. You don't have to burn the boats as you would, but I don't know, when you're sitting in 40-degree water, those boats are burned.
Yeah. And one thing about failure is I've almost removed that from the equation, in that you either win or you learn. So if you look at failure as simply learning, then, but see, in America, we're not taught that. You either got a F or a CBA or whatever. You failed and you're dumb, or you learned. My son came to me the other day and was like, "Daddy, I got a D on this this thing," and he was all excited, and he was like, "Now I know what I have to do to get better." And I was like, "Well, that's what I've taught him."
Yeah, you're like, I can't get mad.
No, it's perfect.
Hey, it's the path to success, right?
Right.
Well, Joseph, thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And to all of you at home or in the car, wherever you are while listening to this, we appreciate the time. And definitely I'll work on getting Joseph back to unpack more topics, because I'm sure there's a plethora of wealth of information that he could share with all of us. But for now, as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without a little pain. Let's grow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
Awesome, man.
The No Rain, No Rainbows podcast is recorded at Camaraderie, a collective workspace in Greenville, South Carolina, right off the Swamp Rabbit Trail. If you're looking for a place to grow your business, network with other professionals, and establish your own workspace, Camaraderie is the place to do so.